Well. Hey guys, what's going on? James here. I'm pretty sure I'm live. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, we are live. Look at that. Look, today we're going to be talking about some Tampa Bay Buccaneers draft needs. I have not gone live for, a couple months now. I think since the Buccaneers lost in the playoff game to the Dallas Cowboys, I have not gone live. So look, I'm going to be here for maybe like 30, 45 minutes, something along those lines. Going to talk about some draft needs of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in this live stream and just kind of get some things going on that end. So hopefully we get a lot of people in here. Hopefully we are able to have a nice conversation going about the draft needs that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have because look, there's a few draft needs that the Buccaneers have, right? It's not a secret. You take a look. In fact, I even did a poll about this, and I think this is also just a really good indication as to where the Bucs are in terms of their draft needs, right? So if we go to my community tab, hold on one moment. What's going on, Terry? What's going on, Doug? What's going on, Ryan? What's going on, Gaming Wizard? Hope everybody is doing good today. But yeah, let me go ahead and see if I can pull up the community tab here. It's not working on my computer, unfortunately, but we will see if I can get it going here on the old phone, and we can see what's going on with this poll that we had done, because I thought it was a pretty interesting poll. I thought that it provided a lot of insight. I thought that it was all in all pretty good conversation. So the poll reads as follows: what position do you want to see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers take in the first round? We're going to go through this at kind of one answer at a time. So, firstly was the secondary position, and I'd put safety and cornerback in that group. And that got 9% of the votes. We had almost 1,000 people voting in this poll. Now, whenever you look at safety and at cornerback as a position of need for the Buccaneers, it is definitely a position of need that, I don't know, screams starting caliber player in most situations. Yes, the Buccaneers do need a nickel cornerback. They lost Sean Murphy-Bunting in free agency. He went to the Tennessee Titans. Yes, they did lose Keanu Neal in free agency. He went to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they do not have Logan Ryan back either. He is still currently a free agent. But I do definitely feel like you look at the position of safety for the Bucs, right? You look at the guys who are there currently. You have Antoine Winfield Jr., you have Ryan Neal, who did just sign with the team. Big fan of the Ryan Neal signing, and then you have Nolan Turner. And right now, that's pretty much it. Those are the only guys that you have as your safeties. And look, I think that if you had a starting safety duo of Ryan Neal and Antoine Winfield Jr., that is a good duo, but you need a little bit more, right? The Buccaneers last year had, basically 4 guys that you could have as starting caliber safeties? I guess I also forgot Mike Edwards in there. He went to the Kansas City Chiefs. So you had Antoine Winfield Jr., you had Keanu Neal, you had Logan Ryan, and you had Mike Edwards. Those are 4 pretty darn good safeties, and it goes to show the level of care and the level of attention that the Buccaneers give the safety position. Right now, I would say you've got 2 guys who can start. You've got Antoine Winfield Jr., and you've got Ryan Neal. And there are a lot of guys who could be drafted here to play safety. You have Quan Martin, who I've talked about already. You have Sidney Brown, who I've talked about already. Both guys out of Illinois, by the way. I do think the Buccaneers could take a safety in this draft, be it in rounds 2 to 5, maybe somewhere along those lines. I think that would be kind of the range. I do see Brian Branch, and I do think that, hey, if he is there, why not consider him, right? Because I think that would be a very solid signing or very solid draft pick for the Buccaneers to make, but I just don't think that it is the most dire need on the team. And I think a lot of you guys would agree with me on that safety is not the most dire need for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team right now. Similar thing with cornerback. Yes, the Buccaneers do have Jamel Dean. They brought him back on a long-term deal. That's fantastic news. You have Carlton Davis, who is also back on a deal, but you lost Sean Murphy-Bunting in free agency. He went to the Tennessee Titans. You have Zion McCollum, who is still there, but after that, it's pretty bare bones. You have, I believe Don Gardner is still on the football team, but you'd always use a little bit more. I think that getting a third cornerback is a need, and I would possibly say it's a bigger need than safety, but you do have Zion McCollum there who could possibly slot in. He did not have the best rookie season, but you never know at the end of the day. And I think that it definitely is an interesting situation at that third cornerback spot. So I think that is definitely one worth paying attention to as well. What are the Buccaneers going to do at cornerback 3? That is another one where we've seen Jason Light get secondary guys in round 2, in round 3, in round 4. I think that is also a potential range here for a third cornerback spot here for the Bucs in terms of where their draft needs align. Kind of continuing on with the remainder of this poll here, the next option that you had picked, if I can pull it up here just one moment, I believe it was the most voted. 59% of people voted for offensive tackle, and that's left tackle or right tackle. And I think that's hard to argue that that's probably the biggest need that this team has right now. Why do I say that? Because, well, you got rid of Donovan Smith. You don't have a left tackle on the roster right now. Point blank simple as that. You don't have one. So what do? Well, as we've talked about in multiple videos in the past here, you can move Tristan Wirfs from right tackle over to left tackle. That is 100% something that you could get done. Now, would it work? It is an experiment. It is a risk. How big of a risk is it? We don't know because we've never seen Tristan Wirfs play left tackle. He's only ever played right tackle in the NFL. So you would be messing with a good thing. You would be running that risk of potentially having Wirfs not be as good as he usually is over on the left side of the offensive line. Don't get me wrong. If it works, that's amazing. And you have probably the best offensive lineman in the entirety of the NFL. No ifs or ands or buts about that. Then you could move Luke Gedeke over to right tackle, and then you have that situation. But that is a risk. If you want to keep Tristan Wirfs over on the right tackle side, then yeah, left tackle is probably the biggest need on this football team. I think that is a fair thing to say, but we don't know what the Buccaneers are going to do. And I think that's going to be one of the most interesting questions here in the first couple of rounds of this upcoming draft is what are the Buccaneers going to do in round 1? What are they going to do in round 2? If they don't take a tackle in the first 2 rounds, that to me says that they are going to move Tristan Wirfs over to the left tackle position. They're going to move Luke Gedeke over to the right tackle position and go from there. If they do take a tackle, be it left tackle, I had them taking Anton Harrison in my latest mock draft, or possibly even a right tackle in Darnell Wright out of Tennessee, then you have a lot more of an interesting situation. It also depends on who they take. If they take Anton Harrison, I think that man will be the starting left tackle for this team. If they take Darnell Wright, then you could still say that they are going to move from right tackle over to left tackle. Jacob said, how hard is it to switch from right tackle to left tackle? Pretty darn difficult, man. It is a pretty hard thing to do. It's not easy at all, actually. So that would be a pretty risky situation for the Buccaneers to have. Depending on how they want to handle that situation, I also feel like depends on how big of a need you think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers getting a tackle is. So that is something that I think is going to be an interesting thing worth paying attention to here in rounds 1 and in round 2 as well. But after that, I don't expect the Buccaneers to get a starting quality tackle in round 3 or round 4, especially at left tackle. I think that is a position that you've got to have in round 1 or in round 2. The Buccaneers got a starting left tackle in the past in Donovan Smith in round 2. They could very well possibly do it again. But continuing on with the poll, pass rusher actually got the third most percentage of the votes here, with 14% out of almost 1,000 votes. And that is one that I think is an interesting one, right? And I've seen people talk about this. I've seen people say, well, especially on my mock draft, I saw people say, James, what are you doing? What are you talking about? Why didn't you have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select a pass rusher? And look, to be fair, I completely understand where people are coming from with that. I did think that in my mock draft, based on what players were available, might be a little bit unrealistic to where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are picking. For example, they've had top 30 visits from Nolan Smith and Lucas Van Ness. If those guys are available, and maybe one of the top tackles isn't necessarily available anymore in Anton Harrison or in Darnell Wright, I think that you could very well see a pass rusher taken there in round number 1 or even in possibly round number 2 as well. But to me, I do understand where it is a need, right? I do. But you have Jotron Shawinka there. You did just re-sign Anthony Nelson to a mid-tier type of contract, and you have Shaq Barrett returning from his Achilles injury. Those are all three, I think, good pass rushers. You could make the argument that how is Shaq Barrett going to look when he's coming back from that Achilles injury, especially at the age of 30? And that is a very legitimate point to make, and I do agree with that point. You don't know how Shaq Barrett is going to look. But they did re-sign Anthony Nelson to the team, and they still can sign some guys in free agency in terms of veteran-ish types of pass rushers. I think that any guy you get in the first round, right, at edge rusher specifically, or possibly even in the second round, obviously isn't a lock to start. We just saw that with Logan Hall last year. Whoever that pass rusher may be, and don't get me wrong, I love Nolan Smith, I love Lucas Van Ness, I think that those guys have great ability. I love BJ Ojolari as well. I think this is a pretty decent class for edge rushers. But I will say, would you rather have a edge rusher that might be the third guy, maybe ahead of Anthony Nelson, maybe behind Shaq Barrett, something along those lines? Or would you rather have an offensive tackle in round one that you know is going to be your starter? That's kind of where it gets interesting there. Similar things can be said with cornerback and safety. If you get a third cornerback, you know they're going to be playing right away and probably almost be a full-time starter. A similar thing can be said with safety. To me, I just don't know where an edge rusher would be in that rotation, because you do have Shaq Barrett coming back, who the team does like a lot. You do have Anthony Nelson, who they did just re-sign on a long-term contract. That's where it does raise a little bit of questions. Don't get me wrong, I do understand that edge rusher is a need, but it just seems like it just definitely, I'm probably digging a hole for myself here right now, because I do think they should take a pass rusher, but it just seems like tackle makes much more sense here in round number one. Round number two, okay, I will probably concede on that. I probably will concede on that. But round one, I feel like, unless it's somebody who's absolutely electric, like a Lucas Van Ness or an Nolan Smith, I just don't necessarily know if the value would be there. I will concede on rounds 2 and 3, but before that, round 1, don't know. But that's kind of it for pass rusher there. I think another thing can also be said, too, with the defensive line. And that was also something that was in the poll. That was with edge defender as well. Defensive line, I think, is a huge thing. That also falls into the category, pretty much a similar thing here with edge rusher. You did lose Akeem Hicks and Will Golston in free agency, but you do have Greg Gaines there, who they did sign. He has been a starter before. You do have, obviously, Vita Vea. He does Vita Vea things. You do have Logan Hall in there as well. You have guys who are, I guess I should say, expectedly looking to step up and looking to replace some of those guys that were lost. Also, Todd Bowles said in a recent press conference that he wants Will Golston or Akeem Hicks to come back into the mix, which, again, kind of falls into that idea of, well, maybe they'll just wait till the after-draft free agency market to really get a guy rather than draft somebody in rounds 2 or 3, something along those lines. That is kind of where I view that situation right now. You've got some guys that are already there in Logan Hall, Vita Vea, and in Greg Gaines. If you do get a guy in round 1, if you do get a guy in round 2, it would just kind of be, I'm not saying it'd be muddying the waters, because you can never have enough good pass rushers and defensive linemen and things along those lines, but I just don't know if that is 100% the biggest need that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have. But I will say that, yeah, round 3, round 4, something along those lines, I think it could definitely be a right fit there for the Bucs. I then want to take a look at the next part of the poll, which was 17% of people thought that the Buccaneers should do this in round 1 specifically. That's the quarterback position. And this one, to me, is a really subjective one, right? I think it is, because you look at the quarterback position now. You have Baker Mayfield, who they did sign on, I'm not going to say a big deal. It wasn't a big deal, but you have Baker Mayfield there on a contract. The coaching staff, the general manager, Jason Light, all seem really excited for Baker Mayfield and what he can potentially do here in Tampa Bay. Former number 1 overall pick, a guy who has been to the playoffs before, has won some games in the league. He is going to be competing with second-round pick Kyle Trask. And look, it's not like Kyle Trask is a 6th rounder, folks. Kyle Trask is a former second-round pick. Now, he hasn't played much in the NFL up to this point, but nobody's going to play much behind quarterback Tom Brady. Of course, we all know that. I think that is where things stand right now. Are the Bucs potentially in love and interested in a guy like Will Levis? Maybe, and Jason Light even said, hey, I'm not afraid to take another quarterback, and I believe him. Why not, right? But number one, I don't think Will Levis is going to be there for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Number two, I think that a guy like Hendon Hooker probably won't even be there for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Obviously, at pick 19, I think that is a legitimate thing that he could be there. But is it too high of a pick to select Hendon Hooker there when you have so many other needs at tackle, at edge rusher, at safety, at cornerback, at defensive line? I think that those are all needs that are above quarterback at this point because of what the Buccaneers have done to show faith in Kyle Trask and to sign Baker Mayfield to a free agency contract. That's where I am on the quarterback thing right now. I don't blame people if they want to see the Bucs take Hendon Hooker or Will Levis or somebody along those lines. Don't get me wrong, I would love Hendon Hooker on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense right now because either A, you're going to ask the question of, well, if they do take a quarterback early, I guess I should say, later, it makes sense. We'll get to that in a second. But early, if you do take a quarterback, why did you sign Baker Mayfield? And then two, why did you put so much faith constantly in Kyle Trask? That's a big bust, essentially. If you do draft a quarterback in round one, you're essentially saying, yeah, we missed on Kyle Trask's second round pick. It is what it is. And Jason Light, I know, is not afraid to do that, but I also know Jason Light does want to give his draft picks legitimate chances to go out there and get on the football field and showcase their value. So that leads me to believe that I don't think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are taking a quarterback early. I wouldn't mind if they did because I am a big fan of Hendon Hooker, but I just don't think it's going to be in the cards. Now, if you think about a quarterback later, Clayton Tune out of Houston is somebody I've been talking about. Fifth round guy, maybe a sixth round guy, something along those lines. I think that is a interesting situation. Because yes, you are taking another swing at the quarterback position. Yes, you are getting a developmental guy who has shown some good things, Clayton Tune. He was a leader at Houston for a couple of years, put up some great stats in his senior season. I believe he had 40 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, something along those lines. He really did put up great numbers at Houston in his senior season. And you know what he's going to be. He's going to be that third quarterback. If you take a guy early, what's he going to be? Do you want him to be the starter? Do you want him to be a developed second quarterback, third quarterback? It definitely makes that quarterback situation murkier rather than the clear-cut quarterback battle that's going on right now between Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask, or that will go on, I guess I should say. If you take a quarterback later, it really doesn't dive into that argument too much, right? It's still going to be between Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask. You just have another quarterback to develop at that point. That's kind of where I see quarterback being a logical pick there in the later rounds for the Bucs. It's not something that I think necessarily makes a lot of sense in rounds 1 or 2, and to be frank, after that, a lot of the quarterbacks are going to be like 4th, 5th, 6th round guys, 7th round guys, things along those lines. So doesn't make a lot of sense early, in my opinion. I think that whenever you look at later situations, whenever you look at guys like Clayton Tune, who did have a top 30 visit with the Bucs, that's where it makes a little bit more sense. But it is still very interesting. What other needs do you feel like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have, folks? I want to know your guys' thoughts and opinions. I did see some people ask about Devin White. Do I think Devin White will be traded? That's going to be an interesting situation. I want to say the answer is going to be no. I don't think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to trade Devin White, although I suppose you never know at the end of the day. And if I'm being completely honest, hey, this is kind of a live stream of hot takes, right? Or not even hot takes, but, really me throwing some stuff out there. If Devin White, if the reports are true, Devin White does want $20 million a year. I love Devin White, great player, but the NFL is a business at the end of the day, and I would probably trade Devin White. I would. $20 million a year, you've got to be the best linebacker in the league. That's what the best linebacker in the league is going to be getting paid, and I don't think Devin White is the best linebacker in the league right now. I've talked about his ability as a pass rusher, and I think that is absolutely phenomenal. I've made a couple of videos talking about that. I think it's great, and I think Todd Bowles uses Devin White as an absolute missile in this defense, but Pass coverage has been an issue. Missed tackles have been an issue. That is where you get those situations of, is he worth $20 million a year? And when you look at the complete package, in my opinion, I think the answer is no. I really do. So that's kind of my thoughts and opinions on that. I don't think they're going to trade Devin White because he is still a very, very valuable player to this defense and to this team, especially in pass rush. But if a team gives a really good offer, if I was the Bucs, I'd consider it for sure. But let me go ahead and take another look here. I did not discuss Bijan Robinson yet. What do you guys think about Bijan Robinson? Running back, that's another need, potential need there, right? Not necessarily at starter, though. You look at Rachaad White, and I think that he is most likely going to be the starter for this team. I think a good starter at that. Hey, friend of the channel and all that for sure, but I think a lot of people were impressed with White and what he was able to do with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this previous season. Towards the end, it seemed like he was out snapping and outplaying in most situations Leonard Fournette. I think that was a great rookie year for Rachaad White, or I guess I should say a solid rookie year, and I think that he will continue to grow, especially in this offense. They did sign Chase Edmonds. I'm a big fan of Chase Edmonds, only 26 years old. I think that was an incredible signing, really a steal in my opinion. I think that he's going to be a great fit for this offense, specifically with Dave Canales. It is a little bit of a familiar system with a West Coast style of offense. I believe Cliff Kingsbury ran a West Coast-ish style of offense. I think that Dave Canales will run a similar one. I think that Chase Edmonds is going to rebound hugely as a number 2 running back. That is what I believe. Where I think the Bucs could have a need at running back revolves around a power back. And Rachaad White's got some good power to his game. I think that Chase Edmonds certainly can as well. But you need more of a power back. That's why I had them taking Cameron Peoples in, 6th round of my mock draft, something along those lines. That is where a pick like that makes some sense. Bijan Robinson, great back. Don't get me wrong. The guy's a really strong back. But I don't think it makes sense for the Bucs, especially at pick 19. The Bucs don't need a starting caliber back that can do everything when you did just take Rachaad White in the 3rd round a year ago, when you do have Chase Edmonds that has shown some good things as a starting caliber running back in the past. You don't need that right now. You don't need a receiving back. Rachaad White and Chase Edmonds can both do that. But you do need a power back. And I think that getting a guy that does focus more exclusively on power in the later rounds of the draft is something that I think could be a realistic thing for the Buccaneers to consider. And I think it is something they should consider. If they do want to replace some of that power that they lost with Leonard Fournette, have a guy that you can use in goal line situations, not necessarily as a receiving back, but power running types of situations. That is where I see the Buccaneers potentially taking a quarterback, but not in the early rounds. I think that a power back is a later round type of need, much like a 3rd developmental type of quarterback, I think is a 3rd round, or I guess I should say a later round type of need. That is where all those things make sense. Majol, by the way, thank you so much for being a member here on the channel. Rachaad White looked great considering he was running behind a tissue paper O-line, an O-line that suffered a lot of injuries. I think it will improve a lot this year. You can add to that offensive line by drafting an offensive tackle in round 1, be it right tackle or left tackle. That is something that you can consider. Running back, I don't think we draft maybe round 6 or round 7. Yeah, Terry, I agree completely with that. I think that is something that makes a lot of sense for the Bucs. Get a power back, get a guy that I think just offers you one type of thing, can do that one type of thing very well to complement your other running backs that you have. Especially in a West Coast style of offense, I think that uses a lot of different types of running backs, which is a good thing in my opinion, and I think that the Buccaneers would go a similar route. Doug says, do I think we'll take Scotty Miller back? Scotty Miller, unfortunately, is with the Atlanta Falcons. He can no longer come back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, unfortunately. But that does bring up another point, Doug, is wide receiver. The Bucs, could they take a 4th wide receiver? I think that is a stronger need than a running back or a quarterback. And I think it's kind of like right in the middle tier of what the Buccaneers' needs are in this upcoming draft, right? Because they don't have a solid number 4 wide receiver right now. You've got Devin Tompkins, you've got Kalen Geiger, who are good options, right? They're undrafted guys. They did a little bit of some kick returner guys, but they're still certainly unproven. You could still get somebody in the post-draft free agency, but I would also draft a guy. Get a bigger, possibly a bigger outside-bodied wide receiver. I believe I had a wide receiver coming out of Maryland, 6'3", 212, something along those lines, was somebody that I had in my mock draft. But you could also get a guy who's maybe 5'10", something along those lines, that could be a faster, speedier slot type of wide receiver. Also, I mean, could be a speedster on the outside as well. Majal says here, by the way, we for sure could use a wide receiver round 3 or round 4. I think round 4 or round 5 is a really good sweet spot. I don't think they have a 4th round pick, but round 5, I think, is a really good sweet spot for a wide receiver. You get a guy that you can kind of grow and develop. They lost so many depth wide receivers this offseason. Brashad Perriman, Scotty Miller, Tyler Johnson was back on the practice squad, then he was gone. I mean, it was bananas how many wide receivers the Buccaneers lost. And look, their starting trio is still one of the better starting trios in the league. Very much up there. I'd say top 5. You have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Russell Gage. I think that Russell Gage is going to rebound in a big way. And I think that Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are going to do Mike Evans and Chris Godwin things. But you do need a 4th guy. You need a 4th guy to bring in there. I think that, honestly, it would not surprise me at all if they went with a veteran and a rookie. Something along those lines, I think, would be a very good thing to see out of this offense. And would not surprise me at all if they do take a wide receiver in this upcoming draft. Tight end is another interesting one. I talked about Darnell Washington. He did have a top 30 visit with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And in that video, I'd spoken about Cade Otton being an all-around serviceable, balanced tight end. Some good receiving ability, some good blocking ability as well. O'Keefe mainly used as a pure blocker in a lot of situations. I would say that tight end is not necessarily a need, but it would not surprise me if they took a tight end or signed a veteran tight end. That's where I feel like they're probably going to more likely go, is signing more so of a veteran tight end, right? Some solid hand, some guy that you know has been around the league for a little bit. You can bring him in. You feel confident that, hey, he can be a serviceable backup, maybe give you a couple of starting reps here or there because Rob Gronkowski isn't there anymore. Cameron Brate isn't there anymore. Maybe they could even bring Cameron Brate back on a cheaper deal. I don't know. But I do think that if I was the Buccaneers coaching staff, I would probably prefer a veteran, maybe a guy who can mentor a little bit, rather than a draft pick. Because a draft pick, I don't think isn't gonna give you that much because you have Cade Otton and O'Keefe there. Unless it's somebody in the early rounds, but as I've already discussed, I don't necessarily think going tight end in the earlier rounds is something the Buccaneers should do. And I think that even, I see Ryan's point here, a round 2 tight end. Even I don't know if that would make, don't get me wrong. Hey, whatever they want to do, I wouldn't be mad if they took a tight end in round 2. It's just not necessarily what I would do. I think you've got to look at other position groups that you can consider bigger needs. And I would consider that safety, cornerback, edge defender, defensive line. If, depending on how the Devin White situation goes, maybe inside linebacker, that's another conversation that can be had there. What do they do at inside linebacker? I mean, you have KJ Britt there. You have Devin White, who has an expiring deal. You have Levante David, who's going to have an expiring deal after this year. That's another pretty big question mark that I feel like needs to be asked. What are they going to do at middle linebacker? There could be a lot of turnover at that position after this season. Hydra says Drew Sanders can fall to us at pick 19. I don't necessarily think they should take Drew Sanders there. Maybe in the second round, Hydra, it would make a lot of sense there. I think that could be an interesting situation there. And that's another conversation to have there. Inside linebackers become a little bit more of a need there, depending on what you want to do with Devin White. For those of you who have just joined, by the way, I did talk about this earlier, but look, and I want to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions. If Devin White does want $20 million a year, well, I would trade him. If it was me, I would trade Devin White. It just doesn't seem like Devin White's not the best linebacker in the league. Solid linebacker, really good ability as a pass rushing linebacker on the inside. He's used very uniquely in this defense, but I don't think the coverage is there for top linebacker in the league. And I think the missed tackles are another thing that are there as well. And that's notable. Devin White led the team the past 2 seasons in missed tackles. That is notable. And that is something that is one of those things that hampers, or I guess I should say prevents the Tampa Bay Buccaneers from giving Devin White that $20 million a year. So it's interesting. It's interesting. I'm going to answer a couple more things here, and then I'm going to go ahead and peace out because we've been going for about a half hour here. Got to go with edge and O-line first. Maybe quarterback in the third or lower. David, I did talk about that. I think that Clayton Tune out of Houston in round 6, something along those lines, would be a very good thing. Round 5 as well. Ryan says, I'd say if we get a quarterback, should be Stetson Bennett. I like Stetson Bennett a lot. There's some character issues there, according to some people. When I heard him talk at the Combine, and I was there, I saw the man in person. When I heard him talk, seemed fine. Seemed like he handled himself pretty well in the press conference. Seemed a little bit irked. Of course, anybody would be about all the chatter about off-field issues and character issues and things along those lines, and that is understandable. But I think Stetson Bennett's a solid quarterback. I could be wrong. I mean, I probably am wrong. But, you know, hey, the issues that are there, at least character issues, I don't know if that's 100% what I think about the guy. Drew Sanders, second round for sure. I'd like it. Sanders is a playmaker. He's a tackling machine. When DTs can occupy sideline to sideline, the tape doesn't lie. Well, there you go. I think that would be an interesting thing. I really do. Who do we have on the D-line? Vita Vea, and that's it. Well, Doug, you also have Greg Gaines. He started, I believe, 25 games the past 2 years for the Rams. You've also got Logan Hall, former second-round pick in last year's NFL draft. Those are some guys that would definitely see some more playing time this upcoming season, or will see a lot of playing time for the Buccaneers as well. Will Golson is not on the Buccaneers roster right now. Hope the Bucs draft OT in round 1. We'll see, Jacob. We'll see. Should be a very interesting situation. Definitely one worth paying attention to. But folks, I'm going to go ahead and end off this live stream. I know it was kind of a weird spur-of-the-moment live stream. I want to schedule these a little bit more ahead of time. I know that this was definitely one that kind of popped up out of nowhere. I am going to be probably doing 1 or 2 more of these if I've got time. I think that, yeah, just gonna try and get back into the swing of live streaming. I've had a lot of fun with it. Hopefully you guys are gonna have a lot of fun with it too. I'm gonna schedule a couple of these. Used to do late night live streams a lot. Geez, I remember when I first started the channel, I was live streaming at like 2, 3 a.m., something like that. So yeah, might do that more in the future. We'll see. But folks, hey, thank you to the handful of people who were here for this live stream. Thank you to anybody who's gonna be watching this back in terms of video, something along those lines. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions about the Buccaneers draft needs down in the comments section below as well. But anyway, folks, I'm going to get you guys out of here. Thank you, Willie. Thank you, Michelle, for being here as well. It is greatly, greatly appreciated. Thank you to everybody else in the chat like Doug, Jacob, Jaden, Hydra, Terry, and everybody else in between. Sorry if I missed your name. Ryan is in there as well. But folks, thank you so much for watching this live stream. Hope you all enjoyed. And as always, folks, I'll see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs. See you guys soon.